All right. So this is week 4, and we're going to talk about the rest of last week's discussion, and Clark's going to lead us off on that, and then we'll wind up with a little bit of a discussion about IEP development when we're discussing behavior. And I'll talk about that with Clark chiming in as needed, but we won't have a whole lot on that. I've got just a few things I want to say about it, and probably nothing too revolutionary or new. So Clark, I'm going to hand it off to you at this point. Take it away.
All right. Y'all see my screen?
Yes, sir.
So we got down to the point where we're talking about volatile situations, and when you're dealing with kids with emotional and behavioral problems, then you're going to run into these types of situations. You know, you've probably either had or will have, or at least heard of things like CPI, crisis prevention and intervention. And under the state law, you have to have that training before you can be involved in a restraint situation, or you must get within 30 days after that. But they will talk to you, for the majority of the CPI training, they will talk to you about how to keep those situations from happening where you would end up having to put your hands on a kid to restrain a kid. And I'm amazed. It seems like every kid that we deal with in the DAEP program or in any behavior class seems to be an expert on the law. And they will all tell you things like, you can't put your hands on me. I know my rights. I know what the law says. Well, actually, in school, yeah, you can put your hands on a kid. You just need to be careful about how you do it and why you do it. And every time you touch a child, that is not necessarily restraint. If it is restraint and it's a special ed kid, then you've got to let the parents know there's paperwork to be filled out. You've got to follow with the state, all this kind of thing. So you don't want to get in those situations. But at any point, you're allowed to touch a child for the purpose of redirection or to comfort. And so I a lot of times will comfort and redirect to avoid having to get into a situation where I have to restrain. But what we want to do is keep these violent episodes from happening. If you have a relationship with the kid, we talked last week about building relationships. If you have a relationship with the kid, you a lot of times can use humor. You can use humor even if you don't have a relationship with the kid in the right way. I remember 2 kids I had no relationship whatsoever with. They were baseball players at the high school that I was working at, and I was not a baseball coach, so I didn't know these kids, but they were squared off in the cafeteria about to have a fight, and I just walked up, kind of a 45-degree angle to them, said, "Hey girls, what's going on?" And they looked at me like, "What's wrong with you? We're not girls." And then I said, "Oh yeah, you're not girls, but I bet this is over a girl, isn't it?" And they both kind of laughed, and we were able to calm down the situation by using humor. You also want to make sure that you're remaining calm. The kid is amped up, and he's going to play off of your feelings. If you're amped up and you're struggling to keep your composure, then they're going to get more and more out of hand. I've been in 2 situations already at the DAP in one of the districts that I work in, where a kid had basically assaulted another kid, and it hadn't gotten out of hand yet, but he was pressed up against him, wanting to start a fight, and I got in the middle of both of those. And there are 3 cameras in the room, and on both situations, I asked the sheriff's officer, the SRO, school resource officer, what he saw, and he told me. And he said, you could tell that the kid was trying to fight. He was making all sorts of gestures. He was really amped up. And I said, well, what about me? After I figured all that, what about me? What did you see for me? And he said, you're standing there with your hands in your pockets. I mean, I don't, I didn't see anything you did that would cause the situation to get worse. And that's really what we want, is that we can remain calm no matter what else is happening. Use outside help as the last resort. The problem with outside help is most of the time they don't have a relationship with those students. The one thing I do appreciate at one of the schools I'm working at is that the school resource officer comes by a couple of times a week and just kind of walks around the DAP talking to the kids and does know them all by name and that sort of thing. So he has a relationship with the kids, and that really helps. But when you're using outside help in any type of classroom management, you're telling the kids, I can't handle this. I can't do this. So whether it's, in the classroom, I'm going to call the principal if y'all don't straighten up. Oh, okay, you can't handle it. So you're going to try to get somebody else in here. And you've really given up all of your power. Remembering pain is temporary. I kind of hesitate on this anymore. Yeah, I've been hit, I've been kicked, I've been, been hit with a chair, had a desk thrown at me. Lisa's daughter in her years has had 2 or 3 concussions, and has been to the doctor, I don't know how many times, but a number of times, because of situations that have happened, but it's never been near as serious or hurtful as, to me, the emotional pain. When you've tried to do everything you can for a kid and the kid still is just screwed up, and turns on you, that sort of thing. That emotional drama and that stress really is more of a problem than the physical pain. But one thing I do on the very first day of school when working with classroom with kids with emotional behavior disorders is I teach and use the 10-second rule. When I call 10-second rule, then everybody except the kid in crisis has 10 seconds to clear out of the classroom. That's the whole purpose of it. So on the first day of school, I teach them, okay, if I call 10-second rule, here's what we're going to do. We're going to walk out of my room quickly and quietly, take your stuff with you. You're going to take the first right. When you get to the hall, take the first left. When you get to that next hall, take a right. Then the second door on your left is room 368. And you'll go in room 368, tell them that there's 10-second rule in Coach Cavan's class, and they'll know what to do from there. That's the Content Mastery Center. You can sit down in there and just keep working. If you do that, you're going to get bonus points. You're going to get all sorts of good stuff, and that will allow us to take care of the issue here. Now, by getting rid of the other kids in the classroom, I'm doing a number of things. One, I'm getting rid of the potential victims, getting them somewhere safe. If I've got 2 kids that are squaring off ready to fight, then everybody except those 2 kids are going to leave. What that does with the kids that are remaining is they don't have to show out for their friends anymore. They don't have to put on a show and let everybody know, who's going to win the pissing contest or who's bigger or whatever else. They can just calm down because, even if it's 2 kids, both of them are going to lie about it anyway. So, and the kids all know that. So it really removes the audience. It removes potential victims. And it allows me as the adult, as the person in charge, to really only have to mess with that one kid and not worry about everybody else and whether they would get hurt or whether they would jump in or whatever else might happen. We had this situation one time when I was an elementary principal where we had a kid named Jay that oftentimes would just torque off. And I told to one of my teachers about this, that you need to teach this 10-second rule to your kids, and you might need it. And one day, without me knowing it, and she realized what a mistake this was to have done later on, but she didn't realize it till it was too late. She went down the halls to make copies, and this kid was just going off. One of the kids in the classroom called 10-second rule, and all these fourth graders filed out of the classroom to where they were supposed to go. In that case, it was the library, and they told the librarian that the 10-second rule was going on in there. And so we all run down to the class where this kid's in there by himself, and he's throwing desks and throwing furniture, but he's the only one in there. So nobody's hurt, and it all worked just fine because this teacher had taught the procedure, and some kid yelled 10-second rule, and it worked. So it's something that, and I know most of you are going to be diagnosticians at this point. You're not in the classroom anymore, but this is a tool that you can teach your teachers who are dealing with these violent kids. When the situation continues, you want to divert the eye contact. The first thing that kids do when they're about to fight is they stare at each other. You know, you see on MMA fighting and in boxing matches, they come for the weigh-in and they stare at each other, you know, all that kind of thing. So it's ingrained in them that before you fight, you're supposed to stare at the other guy. So I told you a while ago, I walked up on these kids that were about to fight, and I came up at a 45-degree angle to them. Well, and then I've done that. I've said something crazy, or I've said something loud. I've done something to where they're going to turn and look at me instead of continuing to stare at each other. In that way, they're diverting the eye contact. And hopefully, if we can break the stare, we can break the tension a little bit and go from there. A deflection statement is, in its simplest form, it's that old thing when you're a kid. I know you are. What am I? I know you are. What am I? You know, it's where you deflect what they're saying instead of taking it to heart and getting your feelings hurt about it. You just deflect what they're saying to where it doesn't have any power over you. Again, I'm not one who uses curse words in my daily walk and talk, but the kids do. And so an example that I've always used and talk about deflection statements is that talking to a kid and he says, "Shut up, asshole." And I'll say, "Asshole? Okay, what kind of asshole am I?" And he says, "Wait, what do you mean? You're a big asshole." "Okay, I'm a big asshole." If I'm a big ass, what color of asshole would be? And what you're doing is you're getting them off of that animalistic type of behavior and getting them out of that emotive state into a rational frame of mind where they have to think. So they're thinking and they say, "What do you mean? What kind of asshole?" I said, "What, blue? I mean, am I a blue one? Am I a green one? What?" And now they're having to think, and you can deflect their statements to where you're not getting your feelings hurt. It can almost become funny, and I've had it where the kids actually start laughing and just will relax in that way. Coupling statements, you tell the kid what they're doing and you tell them what they need to be doing. So I think I told you the other day that I walked into class one day and Marvin was standing on a table with a chair over his head and he was about to throw it at somebody. And I had heard about this coupling statement thing and I thought, well, that's stupid. Kids, I mean, they know what they're doing. And I said, well, I'm going to try this coupling statement. I really don't know. I've never, my textbook didn't have anything about a kid on a table ready to throw a chair down at me. And I said, "Marvin, you're standing on a table with a chair over your head. I need you to put the chair down." And it was the weirdest thing because he looked up at the chair and it's like the first time he realized, I do have a chair over my head. What? Why? And I said, "You have a chair over your head. I need you to lower the chair." And he just looked at it again, and then he just put his arms down. I had already called 10-second rule, so there wasn't anybody in the room except for 2 adults and Marvin. So there was no other kid to throw it at. If he's going to throw it at somebody or hit somebody over the head, it was going to, most likely be me. But a coupling statement, you tell them what they're doing and tell them what they need to be doing. And then after he lowered the chair, I said, "What's going on with you?" He started screaming. I was like, "Okay, Mark, I can't understand what you're saying, and I really want to hear you because I know you're upset. I really want to hear you, but when you're screaming like that, I can't understand what you said. Can you calm down a little bit, lower your voice a little bit, and say it again? Because I really want to hear what you're saying." Okay, that's a rationale statement. You're giving them a reason for what you need them to do. And when we finally got to that point where he calmed down and could tell me what he was so frustrated and upset about, then we were able to work through it. He came down off the table. Nobody got hurt. It all worked out fine. That particular kid, I still hear from him every few years. He finds me on LinkedIn, and gosh, he's got to be in his 40s now. But a few years ago, when I was not working in schools, he found me on LinkedIn, and he sent me a message, and he said, "What do you mean you're working for another company? I thought you were still saving kids." And it just broke my heart that that's the way he looked at it, that I had saved him, and he thought that's what I still needed to be doing. So sometimes you can build relationships with these kids, but that was a situation where he could have ended up in jail or worse with his situation, but we were able to use all this, bring the volatile situation down. Nobody got hurt. You always want to watch your body position and your body language. If kids seated in a desk and you go standing up over them and what the kids call posting up, if you post up on that kid, then you're basically threatening them. You're basically challenging them. So you want to watch your body position. I will put my body between two kids, but I'm a big guy. If you're a smaller person, you don't want to do that. You want to be more at that 45-degree angle. And how far away is the right way to be? Well, if you've ever been around horses, you were taught, don't walk up behind a horse unless you're close enough where you can touch their butt, or you're far enough away that their legs can't reach you. And it's the same kind of thing. If you walk up behind a horse and you walk up right next to its butt, that if it goes to kick you, the kick is going to be more like a push. Yeah, it's going to hurt, but it won't, kill you or break a leg or anything. Same thing with the kids. You want to be close enough that they can't wind up and swing at you, or far enough away that they can't reach you if they do swing. So about right is about a leg length away, where you're about at the point that you would have to step forward to kick them. They would have to step forward to kick you. So that's usually a good position. You're far enough away that they don't feel challenged, but you're close enough you can move in if you need to or have that opportunity. So we want to really de-escalate those volatile situations to keep anybody from getting hurt, you, the kid, or other kids. Any questions on any of that before I move on? All right, we'll keep rolling then. I know there was some confusion about this whole punisher reinforcer extinction thing, so I want to try to clear it up a little bit. I've got a chart here that I made that kind of shows the difference and gives an example. A positive reinforcement, that's when you give something pleasant. Remember, a reinforcer always makes that behavior more likely to occur. So a positive reinforcement is you give them something pleasant to make a behavior more likely. The result is that behavior is more likely to recur. An example, praise given for completing an assignment. Y'all did a great job today. I'm so proud of you. Trina's on my screen. Trina, you did a great job. I read your article this week and it was a lot of fun to read. Thanks. Good job. All right. So I'm giving her positive reinforcement. And we're going to talk about different types of reinforcement in a little bit as far as what kind of things can be used for reinforcement. But what I just gave was an example of social reinforcement, a pat on the back or praise for somebody doing something good. Negative reinforcement is when you take away something unpleasant to make a behavior more likely to occur. And we talked about the antacid or the Imodium, where that would take away the side effects of eating Mexican food. But in a school type situation, we're trying to make a behavior more likely to occur, and we're going to do that by taking away something that the students see as unpleasant. So students work hard during class today. The teacher says, you know what, y'all did such a good job in class today. I've got a homework assignment for you, but we're not even going to do that. Y'all did such a great day, such a great job today that I'm taking away your homework. And so next time they come to class, they're going to think, hey, if we work really hard, guess what? She'll take away that homework again. So she's taking away something unpleasant in order to make the behavior of working hard in class more likely to recur. A positive punishment is when you give something unpleasant that makes a behavior less likely. Certainly spanking is something that you give them something unpleasant to make a behavior less likely to occur. But most of our school districts don't use corporal punishment anymore, although it is still legal in the state of Texas. But an example might be a student writes on the wall. You catch a student writing on the wall. So you're going to give them something unpleasant. You're going to say you're going to clean all the walls in the classroom in order to make up for your writing on the wall. So you give them something unpleasant to do to make that behavior less likely to occur. Negative punishment is when you take something pleasant away. For example, kid playing out on playground, pushes a peer, you take away the recess. So you take something pleasant away. They like recess, but they're not using recess appropriately, so you take recess away from them. A timeout is a type of negative punishment. And that's what taking recess away is. It's a timeout from recess, a timeout from something they enjoy doing. And then this one seems to be the one that caused the most confusion in the papers that y'all wrote. Extinction is when you take away a reinforcer that was positive for the kids, and you're taking that away to make the behavior less likely. So this came straight out of operant conditioning, and we'll use, my dog Maddie is over here asleep on the floor. We'll use her, for example. When she was a puppy, we taught her that if we hold our hand up like this, she was supposed to bark. And we wanted her to bark on command. So we taught her that. So every time we'd hold our hand up, she would bark. We would give her a treat. Well, this fool dog doesn't shut up now. She barks all the time. If she's not asleep, if she's outside, she is barking. So we want to extinguish that. We want to make that barking extinct. So we no longer reward her for barking. All right. So let's talk about a kid that you take to the grocery store. What's the worst place you can possibly take a kid in a grocery store?
The register.
Register's
little
bad.
Candies are.
Cereal
aisle. There you go.
Ah,
They always want the fruity, sugary, right? And lots of parents, you see the kid starts throwing a fit, and the parent says, if you'll just shut up, I'll buy you the Fruity Pebbles, So what we're doing is rewarding a kid for throwing a fit. The other place you see it is right up at the checkout. And, those store people, they're sorry dogs. They put all that really tempting stuff. You're tired, you're done. It's just so easy to throw that candy out of there on there and ring that up with everything else. The kid's in the cart, she's sick of you, you're sick of her. And so you give them a reward for throwing a fit. Well, in extinction, if you want them to stop throwing the fit in the grocery store, then you're going to stop rewarding them for throwing a fit. What we call rewarding that fit is bribery. You're trying to bribe the kid to quit. Now, you can do almost the same thing, but you can do it right in what's a reward, a positive reinforcement rather than a bribe. And the way you do that is before you get out of the car, you say, all right, we're going to the store. I've got my list of things we're going to do. We're going to walk down the cereal aisle. And as long as you've been good up to then, I will let you pick out one box of fun cereal, and I'm going to get a box of healthy cereal. And then when we get up to the checkout, we're not getting any candy. Right? So we've already made the deal. Your reward is going to be for doing what you're supposed to be doing. I'm going to give you the positive reinforcement of letting you pick out the Fruity Pebbles or Count Chocolate or whatever. But in that case, it is a reward that they're earning. It is not a bribe that you're paying them so they'll stop being bad. All right. So extinction, you stop giving something that you used to give. And what I mean by stop giving treats for a student throwing a fit, you got the kid that's in your classroom, the kid's throwing a fit, and you go to the kid and say, hey, Tommy, it's almost lunchtime. And look, I brought an extra ho-ho today. If you'll stop throwing a fit, if you'll get out of the floor and you'll walk with your class to lunch, you can have my ho-hos. You know, you're actually rewarding them for throwing a fit. And so we want to make that throwing a fit go away. So we extinguish that behavior by extinguishing or stopping the previously given positive reinforcers. Does that help clear that up?
Did you ever watch that show that was on TV for a little bit, Super Nanny, where they had the kids doing all that crazy stuff? And like the nanny would come in and like give the parents tips on these sorts of things. Did you ever watch that show?
I never watched it, but I do know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, if someone like you who has all this background knowledge and education, like if you watch it, be like, oh yeah, she's doing positive punishment, or oh, they're doing negative reinforcement. I'm just curious, like if you would watch that and just critique, like, oh, I know what she's doing there. Just, yeah.
I'm sure I would. I mean, I do that at Walmart, you know, I will, hey, Lisa, look, she's rewarding that kid for throwing a fit, you know, so I'm sure I would do that. Yeah.
I actually had a quick question about the taking the recess away. So when I went to this training at Region 11, I think the guy's last name is Tucker. Is it Michael Tucker, perhaps? He's an autism specialist and behaviors. I don't know. But anyways, the training was on changing behavior. And he said that we have to be extremely careful about taking recess away now. Like at our school, we or what I've seen the Jenna teachers do is they'll have the kids walk, you know, like laps around the playground if they misbehaved earlier in the day. And he was like, you got to be really careful. Is there some like new law or something about taking recess away from students? Or I was kind of wondering.
They have to have so many minutes a day of movement and so many minutes in the week. And so, you know how they used to have PE every day, but now like they've got the other specials. So because they don't have PE every day anymore, that counts as their movement minutes. So if they don't have that PE every day, the recess has to make up for their minutes of movement. So if you take away
walking laps, then
and if they're walking, it's movement. So that's okay. But you can't just have them sit. They have to actually be moving. It's part of their.
But I was just wondering if there was some like special education law.
Oh, that's just in general. That's all students. All students are supposed
I know,
to
but
have
I was just curious if there was one with students with disabilities, if anyone knew of that.
I'm not familiar with anything new like that. Lisa, are you?
I'm not either. No.
Okay, I'll do some research on it and find out. It wouldn't surprise me at all. You know, school, we're here for the purpose of stopping fat kids. You know, if schools will just do their job, there'll be no more fat children.
Tell them that
They
you're
don't
kidding.
know how to take me, do they?
They can't see your face for one thing.
No, schools are supposed to cure all of society's ills now. Like
That's
it's a
true.
fact. We all know
Exactly.
it.
Yeah. And we're doing that with sweet potatoes that aren't fried and
Mhm.
minutes of walking. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So anyway, I would not be surprised at all if that's not in there, but I have not heard that.
And then, Dr. Kevin, now that everyone's gone through the review, can we talk about the extinction question or no?
Sure. Oh, you're talking to that Dr. Cavan.
Are you talking to me, Dr. Cavan, or that?
Yeah.
Dr.
She's talking about the one on the diagnostician review.
Oh, yeah. Now we can, sure.
Okay, so
And
it says.
Remember that
there's
not
a-
everybody, hang on, remember that not everybody in our class is a diagnostician in training. So for the
Right, but
benefit,
it's a good example, I think.
okay.
It
Do you-
talks about how this girl, every morning, she sees this one teacher, and the teacher says hello and greets her. And the teacher is, you know, a little upset that the girl never responds to her, if anything, kind of does something maybe rude. And so the choices were, how could you like help her with this behavior? And the answer was extinction. It was to give her an assignment right away, give her a little directive, and then walk away. And so the extinction part was taking away that teacher greeting her, which, you know, most of us as educators were like, oh, you should always greet your students. But in this case, with a student that has some behavior issues or behavior problems, you know, she didn't need that first thing. So it was take that away and instead have her start on an assignment, give her simple instructions, and then kind of walk away. So I thought that was a very interesting question.
Summer, if I remember that question, because Lisa sent me this at one point,
Yeah,
wasn't that they got all the teachers together and they told them we're not going to reward her for being rude, and they were kind of as a group of teachers going to extinguish this behavior?
Or maybe it was just this one teacher that was having the issue with her or something. Yeah, something like that.
I'd have to go back and look at it, but I know that I did not agree with that extinction as the answer. And so I give everybody credit for the positive reinforcement answer, even though the extinction answer is supposedly the right answer according to
And
the,
I actually got that. I actually picked extinction, which is
yeah,
surprised.
you're one of only, I think, two or three people in the group that got that one right, according to the, to the key. But I think we as teachers just automatically go for anything that says positive reinforcement. That seems more natural to us as a go-to.
And I told Dr. Lisa Kevin, I said, well, I think maybe TEA or the state, whoever writes the test, they were looking at the child first, not the teacher, like give them positive. It's like, what will help the child? And the child didn't like that interaction with that teacher, first thing. And so that's why I thought maybe they picked that as the correct answer.
And I think you may be right, Summer. I think you're heading down the right path on that one.
Okay, types of reinforcers. In the program that I worked in back in the 90s, we had a pretty good budget where we could buy all kinds of things to put in our school store that the kids could buy with their tokens, their points. A semi-token economy doesn't actually use tokens, it uses points. And usually by the time you get to middle school, you've moved away from giving a token of some sort to keeping it in a point book. But it can be tokens or it can be points, but it still serves as a reinforcer. And the good thing about those is they can be traded for other things. The bad thing about them is if they don't equate to anything that the kid wants, why bother? A tangible reinforcer is something that you can give to the kid like right now. Here's an ice cream coupon where you can get an ice cream in the cafeteria, or here's a pack of gummy bears or something like that. You give them an actual physical thing that they can have, something to eat, anything like that that's tangible. A social reinforcer is the praise, like we gave to Trina earlier, a pat on the back, anything that is rewarding to a student. Reinforcers can also just be natural. I used to be a runner, and you get to the point as a runner that the endorphins that you're kicking off just become a natural reinforcer. It becomes a reason that you want to do something because you feel better about it. Lisa will get all dressed up and look at herself in the mirror, and that's a natural reinforcer when she sees how pretty she is, and all those types of things. Or I can help her by the social reinforcement by telling her how pretty she is. So those are 4 types of reinforcers that can be used. I know that budgets are often a problem, so all of this I want us to keep in mind. Now, this is Lisa now when we got married at the was it the Shalimar?
Yes, but why are you doing this?
You'll see in a minute. All right.
Okay,
It'll
okay.
make sense.
All
All
right.
right. So we went and got married
Beautiful.
at a
Aren't we-
cheesy
aren't we
Las
lovely?
Vegas.
That
cheesy
looks
Las
so
Vegas
cute.
hotel.
Yeah, we had a cheesy wedding in Las Vegas.
Yeah. And we won't even take a guess at how many pounds ago that was, but it was about 22 years ago.
Yes, it was.
And
Lots of pounds.
soon after we got married, I gave Lisa, I came home one day and I brought a rose, right? And she says, "Oh, you brought me flowers. You get a point." I was like, "Wait, there's points? I didn't know there were points. If I'd known there were points, I could have done a lot better." But then I found out there were points. And so the next week I came home and I brought a dozen roses. And I thought, okay, now I got 12 points. And she says, "Wow, you brought roses again. You get a point." I said, "Wait a minute. Last week I brought you 1 and I got a point. This week I bring you 12. And she says, "Yeah." And I said, "That's 12 points, right?" She said, "No, it's a point." I didn't get this real quick. Before too long, I bought her a new car. It was still just a point. And I wasn't really good at this game at all, but I knew that there were points to be earned, and I knew that I needed to work hard to get these points. But Lisa will tell you I'm kind of a cheapskate.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
Yes.
You can tell by the
Now-
purchase of a car as a gift. Very miserly.
Well, the problem was the old car was really, really bad. So we needed a new one anyway. So you might as well make it a present, right? But she liked this restaurant that's gone out of business now, but it was called The Keg, and it was over here off of Brian Irvin and 820 Fort Worth. And we would go there and we would split a steak, or I'd get the steak and she would order a lobster tail. So it ended up being about 50 or 60 bucks by the time we got in and out of that place. And so first time I took her there, I said, "Okay, like how many points is this?" She says, "Clark, it's a point. You don't get it. Everything's a point." I thought, dadgum, I'm spending 50 or 60 bucks every time I go here, and all I'm getting is 1 point. I might as well go back to that flour from Kroger's because that got me a point. But then I figured something out. If on Monday, I said, "Hey, Lisa, how about Friday I take you to The Keg?" I got a point just for asking. And then come Friday, if I actually remember that's what we were going to do, and I actually took her, then I got another point for remembering. And then I got the point for taking her. So I got that point for asking her. The anticipation got me another point. I got the point for doing it on Friday, and then the point for actually buying the dinner at The Keg. So here, the same 50 or 60 bucks that I was spending, instead of getting 1 point, I got 4 points.
Now you need to
Great.
tell them that there are not actually any points involved here. There are no points. You're just making this up, right?
No,
I
there are
wasn't-
definitely points.
I was
Because
not
I've also
keeping a-
learned,
I was not keeping a ledger though. There's no ledger.
but if you screw up, it's like bankrupt on Wheel of Fortune. You lose all your points,
No.
and you probably end up in the hole, but you got to totally start over. So I learned that as well. Well, a little bit silly story, but what I'm talking about is reinforcers, and there are ways to make reinforcers better. Immediacy is one thing. If I see Lisa and I'm thinking, well, you are looking pretty hot tonight. You know, if I do that and tell her right now she's looking good, that's a good thing. But if she comes in today, or I see her this afternoon or after this is over, and she says, hey, I've done my hair a little different. What do you think? And I say, oh yeah, I meant to tell you, Tuesday 3 weeks ago, you looked good. All right. That doesn't get many points. That's bad, because she reads that as I don't look good now. I did look good then. And then she's trying to remember. Of course, she probably does remember what she wore Tuesday 3 weeks ago. I don't. But when you reward a student, you need to reward them right now, especially our kids with learning disabilities, with emotional disturbances, behavior disorders, with intellectual disabilities, because if you don't reward them right now, if you don't catch them being good and reward them right now, it's not going to make a whole lot of difference. It needs to happen right away. And then frequency. If I took her to the keg on Friday, like we had said, great. And then if I take her again to the keg on Saturday night, like, okay, you probably get your point. And I say, okay, they're open on Sunday. Let's go Sunday night too. You know, at some point we're doing this every day. And she's like, I don't want to go there again right now. You know, let's do something different. So how frequently you're doing it can make a difference. You can overdo it. You can underdo it. The enthusiasm with which you reward someone can make a big difference in your reinforcer. One thing I found that was, you know, it cost me absolutely nothing except a little bit extra time. I could write crazy things on the kids' papers, like screaming maggot guts. That was a good paper. And they thought that was so cool that I would say weird things like that on their papers. So a paper that they got a 95 on, if they got a 95, okay. But if I said screaming maggot guts, you got a 95, that was super cool. It's the same thing with the enthusiasm. If I say to Lisa, yeah, you look good. Okay. But Lisa, man, what have you done? You're hot tonight. You know, the level of enthusiasm makes a big difference on how that reinforcer feels to her. The eye contact, if you're making eye contact with somebody as you're reinforcing them, that's much better. The description of the behavior. If I just go to some kid and said, hey, good job. What I do? What, you know, that doesn't help. But if you say to the kid, hey, you know, I saw you holding the door open for Mrs. Smith a while ago. Good job, man. I appreciate you doing that. It's a real gentleman. All right. I've described the behavior that makes the reinforcer better. And then the anticipation. Okay, kids, y'all done a great thing. On Friday, we're going to have a reward day, right? They're going to look forward to that. So this is the same thing like me asking Lisa out for Friday night on Monday, because she gets to anticipate it that whole week. When my parents both passed away last year, but when they were still alive, when Lisa's mom was in better health, we would sometimes say, let's take them out to eat. But we would make a point of asking them a few days ahead of time, so they got to look forward to that. It gave them something to look forward to. And then variety. Whatever you're giving, you know, even if you're a big chocoholic and that's every day you get chocolate, eventually, I guess, you would get tired of that. You'd want something different, maybe chocolate with almonds, you know, but you need some sort of variety. Well, this is where a token-based or semi-token-based economy, where you get a menu of rewards, can make a big difference, because they can have the anticipation of, wow, when I earn enough points, I can bring a stuffed animal. Cool. Or wow, for only 10 more points, I could have lunch with one of my friends. For 80 points, I get to use the rolly chair that day. You know, that's awesome. So it's giving them something to anticipate And there's a variety of things that they can do. And look at all of these. None of these cost a teacher anything, right? So a lot of times you'll hear teachers say, well, I can't afford to reward my students when they do good. Sure you can. I was amazed as a high school teacher what my kids would do for 30 seconds. All right, guys, if you're really good, if we get this done, I'm going to let you go to lunch 30 seconds early today. 30 seconds before the bell rings, y'all get to go to lunch. Why is that a big deal? Because you're first in line. All right. Being 30 seconds after the bell may make 10 or 15 minutes difference in when you get to eat lunch because the line's that long. So just think of things that you can come up with that are meaningful for the kids. Again, the tokens are worth nothing if they're not meaningful to the person receiving that reward.
Dr. Kevin, can I jump in for
Yes.
1 second?
Sure.
So one of my favorite ones is when I was working at the school that Gwen is at. And this guy is like in his early 20s now, but he had a mouth. He was autistic and very high functioning, but he had a mouth, and he would, racist comments, degrading comments to his classmates. It was awful. And he would do that all day long. We tried everything. Everything. Well, then we were just like, okay, what is the most motivating thing to him? And he was obsessed with fire alarms. And so we made his behavior chart. It was broken into two. It was morning and then afternoon. And so he would work, like we put very specific. He had to do these 3 things. And we had it broken up by like 45-minute chunks. So at lunch, if he had gotten those things, he got to come to our room and have 5 minutes on the computer listening to fire alarms, and then again for the second half of the day. And as cheesy as that sounds, it worked so well. So we just had to find that really motivating thing to him, and it changed everything.
Absolutely. We had a kid that loved fractals. And if he got 5 minutes to get on a computer and do a Google search for fractals, he'd do anything in the world for you. So yeah, absolutely. Find the thing that works for that kid.
And
At
can
least
I add,
Your motivation
Yeah,
changes
please.
every day. Like what is important to a fire alarm might be important today. He's hungry today. So what I always say, okay, pick 3 things you want to work for today. And you never know what they're going to pick, but you can usually infer that they're hungry if they want to choose from the snack box first, and if they want to have lunch with a friend second, and like they're, at least my ED students, it changes.
Yeah, that's where your menu comes
every
in
day.
handy.
So you have to just ask, what do you want? What would you like to work for? Here's how we're going to do it. And you just, yes.
Yeah, great ideas.
I just wanted to add to that because in my resource classroom, we use a token type system as well. And it is hard to find out what the students really like. And so as you were going through this, I started thinking, that first week of school, it would be a really good idea to have them fill out like a Google form where they either type in, the items that they like so that it can all be on one spreadsheet, or even have like choices, with a drop down menu. That way, all year long, you kind of have that spreadsheet of items that you should keep on hand for the treasure box, or I call it the treasure box. That's where they go and buy whatever they want to buy with their ticket. We actually use tickets because we have found that, if there's that one little Johnny over there that's being disrespectful, oh, thank you, Dee Dee, for sitting down and writing your name on your paper. You're working so quietly. If you go around and you give a ticket to everyone, oh, I really want to give you this ticket, but I got to wait till you make a good choice, and then they make a good choice. And then again, it's bribery, but you got to do what you got to do sometimes just to get them to work.
It's not bribery. It is not bribery.
Oh,
Bribery
okay.
is when you reward them to get them to stop doing something you don't like them doing.
Oh, okay.
So they're already in a problem and you're bribing them to get out of the problem.
Okay.
As long as you're doing it ahead of time, then you're rewarding, you're reinforcing, and that's okay. Bribery is not.
So that's a
When I
positive
was-
reinforcer, Summer. That's a
Positive
positive reinforcer.
reinforcement.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And then when I was reading in the text about the token reward systems, when I was creating that table of 5 different strategies or assessments that we made, because I think Gwen kind of touched on this last time. She asked, don't you try to do a gradual release and try to get it to where they're not so dependent on that? And they do mention that in the book. So I thought that was a good thing that they kind of talk about. The long-term goal is to kind of try to move away from that if you can, but
Mhm.
And I will say that our little friend that was obsessed with the fire alarms, eventually we faded it out because he learned how to act in class, and that was our goal, and that is what happened. So
That's good.
anyway.
that's awesome.
That's real good.
And that is also extinction. You're extinguishing the reward that you used to offer. So I know it gets kind of complicated in there on that whole extinction and extinguishing and all that, but very good ideas.
Great.
I have a student in my class that, as a therapist, we have 45 minutes, and I have this one student who has a huge behavior, really bad behavior. So as I've been reading all of these activities, I even talked to Dr. Cavan when she and I were doing my review, and there were some of the things on there that made me think about what I could do with him. And so I started watching some things that what his problem is that he's bored, because he is actually very bright. But of course, we know that we have dyslexia kiddos who are very bright, but they still have some gaps in their reading. So what I did the other day, I started doing little things like, okay, I'm noticing when he's getting bored, when he starts laying his head on the desk and starts actually the tapping of the pencil kind of thing. I was like, wait a minute, I just read that, So then I said, well, what can I do? So I went over and say, okay, so how, can I help you, or something that you need? And so he kind of like perks up a little bit when I give him a little bit more attention. And then yesterday, was it 2 days ago? I had an activity on the smart board. And so I said, okay, so today we're going to allow everyone to go to the smart board and to write their answer. And I said, Aiden, would you like to go first? And he was excited. So the whole rest of the class time, he was totally attentive. I was like, wow, this is actually working. So just little, just to kind of get him engaged and feeling more like, okay, so today last couple of days, he's been doing really well. I'm like, okay, some of these little things, tidbits are helping, because how do you get a student in a 45-minute block to do what you need him to do?
Mhm.
And because it's not the whole day, it's just that one piece of time for him. And because he's so bright, I can tell now why he's acting up. And again, it probably has something to do with what happened earlier in the day or whatever. But in my class, he can behave because I'm kind of working with him. So just wanted to share that. I feel really good about that.
Good. Thank you, Trina, for sharing.
Yeah.
Anything else, Dr. Mister?
Sure.
Nope.
All right. We're going to shift gears for just a few minutes. I'm not going to keep y'all but a few minutes, but let's look very briefly at where'd it go? On my desktop. Let me find it. Clark, did you do something with my important stuff on my desktop?
Yeah, I ran up there during this meeting and screwed it all up.
Usually when something goes wrong, it's because you've messed with it, so.
Mhm. Yeah, that computer that we bought for us that I don't
Okay.
ever get to see anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let me find it.
But I've got a good iPad, so I'm cool.
All right.
Can you use that as a tax write-off since you have to use it for Zoom for your job, that new computer?
Darn right.
Yeah. Okay, what happened to that? I had that website opened. maybe when I got on Zoom, it went away. All right, I guess I'll just have to pull it up. Just a second. It's gonna take me just a sec.
Miss Bowman, I have one right now at our school, and he has really awful language, like calls me names, calls principal names, doesn't matter who, second grade. So I talked to the diag, I talked to his parents, I talked to the principal. We have second grade is a TEK for cursive handwriting. So he can say a word to me in private if he writes it 10 times in cursive. He has to spell it correctly. But we're learning. He's putting his letters together and he's saying it to me in private instead of yelling it at me or other people. So it's like always a process.
Going to be some really pretty graffiti somewhere one of these days.
Okay. Let's talk for just a minute about about IEP goals and objectives. And this is just off of the web. Y'all have all heard of SMART goals. SMART, pretty popular little acronym for how to write a good goal. So this is nothing original with me. Y'all have heard this, I'm sure, over and over. But the S is for specific. You want to write a goal in a targeted academic, behavioral, or functional area. And we're talking specifically about behavior tonight. That includes clear descriptions of the skill being taught or observed, how progress will be measured, and again, specifics, the direction of the behavior, whether we're going to increase it, decrease it, maintain it, like Clark was just talking about, what we're going to do with that behavior, and what environment progress will be measured in, and the level of attainment. The age level, without assistance, with assistance, with an adult reminder, whatever the conditions are that surround that behavior. And Clark, if you want to jump in here with any experience you've had with writing behavioral objectives that are specific to behavior, we're always talking about behavioral objectives, but specific to the area of behavior, chime in, okay? Are you still there, Clark?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
I can't see you on my screen, so I didn't know if you were still there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was nodding really.
Oh, okay. I can't see you right now. Then the M is for measurable. You can count or observe it. It's something that you can measure. Basically, you must use numbers. They must be meaningful. It's important that the baseline measurement is comparable to the goal measurement. This way we can see how much progress has been made in a year. So again, something that's measurable. And then the A is for attainable. It's got to be something that the student can actually get toward within the allotted time period. So make sure that your goal, or those that are being written for your students by others, are attainable. It's best to write a goal you feel the child can and will achieve with the appropriate services and supports, rather than to shoot too high. So we'd rather get in the ballpark and then have to write a new goal than to always be writing goals that are unachievable. Remember, if the student exceeds expectations and meets their goal early, like I said, we can always write a new goal. It's better to be able to mark goals off and say achieved, 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 than to never have one that's met. The R is for relevant. Although we often pull from a goal bank, it's important to modify and individualize those goals so that they're meaningful to the individual student. We don't want all of our goals and objectives to look exactly alike. And this is something that TEA is sensitive to when they start to do an audit. If every goal looks exactly alike for every student, every objective is exactly alike, then the individuality of our IEPs is absent. So we want those to be individualized and to be very relevant to the individual student. How do we write our goals? We base it on evaluation and PLAFs. So evaluation, what you diagnosticians in training are doing, and what teachers are measuring in the classroom. So those are the two things that contribute to IEP development, the development of our goals and objectives. And then lastly, the T stands for time bound. We want to start by considering the baseline and those present levels that the teachers share with us. Then decide what exactly they need to be able to do after a year of special education. You should be able to progress monitor all of your goals at regular intervals. So here are some samples, some IEP behavior goals that come from a goal bank. And these are all over the internet. You can find them on Teachers Pay Teachers. You can find them on Pinterest. You can find them just by Googling behavior goals. They're everywhere. But here are some good samples. This first set are on task work completion goals. And here's some examples of these SMART goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-oriented, time-based. When given a task or direction, the student will begin the task within 1 minute. There's your measurable, your time-oriented, and remain on task for a minimum of 10 minutes independently with no more than 2 prompts on 8 out of 10 independent tasks as measured by staff data. So meets all of the criteria of a SMART goal. Look like a good goal? Y'all like that one? Okay, let's scroll down and we were talking about movement a while ago. Here's one. With movement breaks and the use of self-regulation strategies, the student will demonstrate the ability to attend to a task for an average 75% of intervals in a 20-minute class period. I always think it's interesting to imagine how we would actually measure some of these things. And if you can't imagine how you would measure it, then it's probably not a very good goal. If it's not easy to measure through progress monitoring, then you don't want to adopt it as a goal. Let's look at class participation. Blank will demonstrate raising her hand to participate in whole class and or small group instruction 80% of the time in 5 out of 5 intervals. Now that's pretty easy to measure because she's going to have to do it every time, as measured by teacher observations. So a lot easier to do 5 out of 5 than 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 5 or 8 out of 10. So we want to pick a number there that's easy to measure.
Thank you, Kevin. Can I say something to that?
Please do.
So I have a student with autism who transferred into our school within our district, but from another elementary within our district. And one of his goals was that he would bring his supplies to class and be ready to go, you know, every morning or every time before class started. And they had it at 100%. That was the only way he could master it.
Mhm.
And that 5 out of 5 is what triggered my brain on this. And so when we did the annual review, I had to tell the committee that we were going to discontinue that goal because it was unattainable to be at 100%, you know, but that I would rewrite it and that we would, but with a lower percentage, maybe 80%. And so I just wanted to let the class know, sometimes it's really hard to get 100%. I mean, that's perfect.
Right. And we
for
want,
students with disabilities. So,
and I think you've got to go back to that A in SMART. And is it
Right.
attainable? And if it's not
Attainable.
attainable, then it's not a realistic goal. I'm glad you said that, but it's got to be something that's also measurable. And is it realistically measurable? Can the teacher manage the data? Can the teacher measure it in a classroom setting? And is it something that the teacher can observe readily? Or is it going to take an assistant to do the data management?
right. I was thinking about that when you were going over the one that had all the times and stuff. I was like, they'll have to have a stopwatch. If
Exactly.
it was just a behavior classroom and there are only 3 or 4 students, that'd be super easy to collect the data on. But when you have 48, 50 like resource students like I do, it's like just collecting the data is going to take forever.
Take all your time. Right. So you've got to write the goals so that they are manageable from a data perspective. So don't let your, if you're a diagnostician, don't let your teachers write goals that can't be managed, and help teachers write goals that are attainable. Just like you just said, Summer. So something that can be achieved within a 1-year period, and something that's attainable by the student and manageable by the staff as well. Clark, you have anything on this that you want to comment on?
Well, somewhere around here, somebody's going to start talking about extrinsic versus intrinsic.
Okay,
And certainly we would love for everybody to be intrinsically motivated, and we would much rather our kids do school because they just love it and all that kind of thing. But, you know, how many of you would continue to do your jobs if your only rewards were the intrinsic rewards? In other words, you don't get a paycheck anymore, you know? So we all work for extrinsic rewards. And it, to me, it's one of those fake it till you make it kind of things. Let's let the kids start acting good for the wrong reasons, maybe. And eventually they learn how to act good, and maybe they'll mature and start acting good for the right reasons.
mhm.
So I would say with behavior kids, don't get all hung up on whether it's intrinsic or extrinsic. Let's just get them acting right, and then we'll worry about the motivation.
Here's an interesting one. When given a frustrating situation, and then they have a couple of examples, an undesired task, a demand, and or undesired peer behavior. With one prompt, the student will utilize coping strategies, and then there are some examples. Take a deep breath, take a break, deep breaths, etc., and return to and remain on task with a calm body and mind for a minimum of 10 minutes with an average of 95% over 8 consecutive school weeks across all classroom environments. Now, to me, as I read that one, that seems kind of hard to manage, to document. Does that seem that way to anybody else, or does that just sound like you could work that out real easily?
Unless that kid has a one-on-one aide going to all the different classes,
Mhm.
not going to happen.
I was gonna say the first part of that goal is similar to some of the social skills goals that we have. But the part wherein it says and remain on task is, I think that's fine. But this whole calm body and mind, how do we know if their mind is calm?
I was about to say
Honestly,
the same.
we're
I was
not.
thinking the same thing, Summer. How do you measure a calm mind? I mean, a calm
Yeah.
body is observable, but a calm mind, I'm not
then-
so sure.
And then usually we just say something like, 75% mastery will be at 75%. And then, but it's a good point because I was in an art meeting recently when one of the gen ed teachers questioned me when I was going over progress and said, well, is this what he does in the resource room? All these goals that he's mastered, or is this with all content, And because the goal wasn't written specifically as if it was just in the resource room or if it was collecting data from all the gen ed teachers,
Yeah,
I told her it was strictly from the resource room because we have the behavior charts and that's how we track the data that way. But anytime, a teacher gives me data, I try to kind of calculate that in as well. So, I mean, but definitely doing all the classes and the 8, that's just a lot.
yeah,
We used to say within 36 instructional weeks, but the last 2 COVID years, our district has asked us to get away from wording goals like that.
yeah.
So we always start ours off with by the next annual R date,
uh-huh.
comma. So and so when given, whatever, an alphabet chart, direct modeling, and then we do the time. But our district wants to know within what frame, not only
Mhm.
the measurement time, which is perfect in those, but in what frame, because speech goals are within 6 weeks and some districts do 9-week periods. And so our
Right.
district was very specific about all of our goals have to start off with by the next annual R date.
Okay, and tell me again what they did say and they got away from.
They used to say within 36 instructional weeks, because
Okay.
That's
I
what
had a
ours
student
say.
pulled one, and our district wanted us to get away from that because of COVID.
Okay,
They didn't want us to say within instructional weeks because that was
No.
loosely interpreted. So now we want to say by the next annual R date, when given whatever his accommodations might be,
uh-huh.
the student will do this within this time as measured by teacher reports and feedback. So all of it's the same, except for we have to preface ours with
Mhm.
by the next annual R date because they want to make sure they have a time on the front end.
Right.
Does that make sense?
And that one makes good sense to me. I like what you just said. If I were the director, I think I would probably go with something like that. But, all of those different bits of verbiage come from what lawyers have told directors to put in their paperwork.
And to put in the success ed, because, in
Yeah.
success ed, we have all those drop down
Yeah.
choices.
Yeah.
But I wanted to add something. So last year, my partner teacher, it was her first year to teach, first year special ed. And so this third grade math teacher came to her before an ARD, and she said, I just don't understand why y'all have to write these goals for, the whole year. Why can't it be for the first 6 weeks, and it goes with their scope and sequence? And I said, well, I get her point because that makes sense. But at the same time, it depends on when the annual ARD is, because say that we're having it in the 5th 6 weeks, and then they go to the next grade. So I was just wondering if there's anyone in this Zoom today where their district actually does try to correlate it with the scope and sequence of the
I don't think-
curriculum.
I don't
We
think
call
you
that an
can, because what if the
objective.
kid, or what if the kid moves, like
Mhm,
all of the scope and sequence doesn't match up per district. So
Yeah,
that's
you
true.
have to be more generic.
I think you have to go, our date to our date. You really do. I mean, that's what makes sense. And whether you want to call it, 36 weeks or whatever you want to call it, it's basically from our date to our date. Let's look at one more here under aggression. The student will refrain from physical aggression. And then there are several examples, specifically kicking, hitting, pushing, tripping across all environments in school. So this is a non-negotiable 100%er for 4 consecutive weeks with all adults and children as measured by event data. So that's one of those that you either do it or you don't. And then you can see there are other examples here, anxiety.
And on some of those behaviors that are, really dangerous behaviors, I've got no problem with it being 100%.
Exactly. They've got examples for peer interaction, organization. So I actually got this off of a blog that a school psychologist writes. And I'll post that link on the Canvas tonight, if you want to look back at it. Okay. Any questions or comments before we close tonight? Y'all have been very attentive and so contributory. I appreciate it.
I had a quick question about the assignment when we put that chart together. Is there any way that we can maybe at the end of the semester or sometime share those so that we can all have a collection of them? Because I think it's beneficial if it's something that we can, as a diag, that we could share with resource teachers or behavior teachers. Do you see what I'm saying? Kind of like if we each did 5, I mean, I know some of us maybe did the same ones, but it would kind of be nice to
I'd
have a
say
group of them.
anybody that wants to share, we can put a we can open a discussion board. Anybody that wants to share theirs, we can post them. Y'all want to
Okay.
do that?
That sounds good.
I have a question about our behavior observation, where you have the videos of Jaden. So is Jaden the kid that it's like his mom is videotaping him? That's the only Jaden I could find. The one that says Jaden is
His
upset.
name wasn't Jaden.
It's actually Joseph, isn't it?
Joseph.
It's
It's
Joseph.
Joseph.
How'd you find it? Where is it?
It was the one where he was
It's in the-
oh,
It's
It's
in
one
So
of
the-
the
the
kid
iris-
that was spitting and
It's in the
blood
iris
sticking out his
module
tongue.
on
The iris-
FBS.
Oh.
Oh, it's in
Yeah,
the iris module.
it was the
Okay.
iris module. I just can't remember which one it was.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah, that kid was
Joseph.
obnoxious.
Does
That was
it
the
take you
FBA
to
one.
does it take you to a YouTube video?
No, it was
No.
embedded. It was the
It's
FBA
embedded.
one.
Yeah,
It was, it's the,
it was the one where we had to do the we kind of had to do like the chart where we was it the was it the scatter plot, I think maybe that assignment.
Okay,
we
I
had to
haven't done
kinda
that one yet.
watch-
Yeah, I shut down
watch
because
what-
I couldn't find it. So
Yeah,
So
it's
it's-
only posted in one place, and I think Drs. Cavan, said they even had a hard time finding it, but it had said August 14th, 2014.
Yes.
In one of
It's
the Iris
only
modules.
one weird place, and I was like,
It's a weird place, yeah.
Now,
chart, and I was like, what? Yeah.
I'm just,
So
I'm gonna,
I passed it. I just was
and
like,
I'm gonna pass the buck a little bit here because I inherited this course from another professor who inherited from another professor.
Ah,
And so it was originated by one professor, and then it got passed to a second professor, and then it got passed to me at the very last minute over the Christmas break, when my mother was having strokes. And so it's been retooled a couple of times, but the original person that did it hasn't touched it in a while. And so Clark and I have both commented that it's not the way either of us would have set up a class. It doesn't have our fingerprint on it. You know, it's not the way we would do it. And we've had a hard time finding stuff in it. And, you know, it's, so we're going to retool it before I teach it again. And hopefully he'll get to teach it with me again too. But I apologize for the cumbersome nature of it. And I mean, I'll take responsibility. It's my fault because I didn't get to it soon enough to figure out all the kinks in it. But it came to us kinky, and it was kinky before it came to Dr. Bullard, and it was kinky before, you know, so it's been cumbersome for a while, and we're just trying to work through it. And I appreciate your patience, everybody. And
I just never knew you were so kinky. Dr.
really,
Kathy.
well, and look at Clark's face. He didn't know it either.
But now that I saw your wedding picture, I was like,
It explains
Dr.
it.
Kevin, I see you.
you
Yeah.
haven't aged a bit, and we all know
No.
what point. We all know what points are.
That's right. That's
We all
right.
know
Yes,
points,
we-
and you haven't aged a bit.
And we haven't aged a bit. I'll take off my, see, I look the same without my glasses. I'll take my hair down and y'all would never recognize me. But
Now, I was doing that example one time in a meeting of like 200 people. And this one woman spoke up and she says, not all women are like that. We don't use points at my house. I'm like, oh,
Oh
whatever.
gosh,
Take a
she
break.
sounds like fun.
yeah.
So can I ask real quick, the group project, is that all of us as a group, or are we divided into?
No, Gwen, you're with Rachel and I.
That's what
Yeah.
I thought.
So I need to get
we've
your
been
phone number.
Emailing, okay, how to do it. So Rachel and I have emailed.
Okay. We just
Yeah.
need to start a group.
We just did
Yeah,
a,
I'll start a Google Doc and we'll get it rolling.
Y'all refresh my memory. What is the group project? Is it a FBA or ABC or?
It's an Iris module.
Hi, Tammy.
The,
Hi, Tammy.
by Tammy.
oh gosh, it's a
You can either
behavior
use
Iris
your own
module.
student. You can either use your own student or the Iris model.
It's an Iris module. At least
But
that's
I
what the
thought-
instructions said.
But
And we
what are we
just did a-
supposed to create? I forgot. Is it a ABC or a FBA?
I don't remember.
That's something different.
Clark was messing with that.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Does
I'm just a
anyone remember
volunteer.
what
We
the
don't,
group
we don't
project
remember.
thing?
It's just an
I don't even get
Iris
paid.
module, and you answer the questions at the end, and then you write a report about each person's contribution.
Oh,
Okay.
well, why
Yeah,
am I
what she
thinking it
said.
said you could either use someone in your class or?
That's the one
someone-
before. That's another assignment.
That was
That's-
the one where you're supposed to be doing the ABC chart on a student.
And you can
Okay.
tell that.
As
that-
part
was
of your
different.
Flip the
FBA.
ABC charts on Real Kids, so I can get my hands on that easily.
And y'all can tell we're as
Yeah, that's
confused
what I'm
as you are,
thinking.
right? So,
I was up till 3:30 though, and I got some of my stuff done, so I'm not quite as behind as I was, so.
Oh,
that's
dang.
it.
Did you say we can email you, Dr. Kevin, about our group? That the email you wanted?
you can email, you email that Dr. Cavan.
Oh, that Dr. Kevin.
Email
That's
him
why.
because, well, you
He's
were the
down.
one.
He's
you were
down
the
on me
one-
too.
He's at the
Oh,
bottom
he's
of
over
my
there to
page.
me. He's over there to me.
There's where it is to me.
He's the one who divided up the groups.
Okay.
Did that,
I email-
Clark.
Sure.
The computer did that.
The computer did that. Well, how
Trina,
about
you
the
want to
work for you?
trade some group members? Is that your issue?
Oh, I love my
No,
group. Now,
You
we're
cannot
done. What are you
trade.
talking about?
No, Summer,
I'll
no,
see a
no.
Trina and I'll
I'm
raise
just
you a
joking.
summer.
I was just kidding. I'm full of jokes tonight. Okay, Summer's got jokes. That's all.
All right, if you don't know your group, contact me, since I am the one getting paid for this class, and
Okay.
Clark's not, okay?
Oh,
And,
poor Clark.
yeah, well, he's getting
He's
paid in
getting
other
a
ways,
point
right?
tonight, though.
More
That's
points.
1 point.
One.
Um, hush, be nice, Clark. All right, I'm gonna take a point away if you're not nice.
That was just bankrupt.
So email me and I'll figure out what group you're in, because I think I have access to that. Don't I?
Gwen, I just
Everybody
sent you
does.
my phone number. It's in the chat. I sent it to you directly because I don't want anyone else to have it. No, they all have it.
We've all got it.
I got it. I'm moving around the house. My
Okay.
teenagers are
That's
moving. So I'm
Okay.
home.
Y'all
Okay.
need anything else tonight before we shut it down?
Nope.
You probably should have stopped recording like half hour ago.
Yes, I should have,
Oh.
but I didn't. So I'll stop now, okay? And we'll see y'all later. Let me know if you have any questions. And as I said the other day to Michelle, these due dates are not written in stone. If you've got an issue and you need a little bit more time, let me know. Okay? Don't sweat. Don't sweat it.
Thank you all.
Thank
This is
you.
fun.
that important.
Bye,
Okay?
guys.
It has been
Thank
nice
you.
having both of y'all. It's been really interesting.
We're a good team. aren't
Yeah,
we?
it
You are
works.
a great team.
Thank
And
I
you.
read
I love seeing everybody every week. That's what makes me happy.
I think it's fun. We'll see y'all.
I
Have a
read
Bye.
your
Have a good evening.
feedback, Dr. Clark, about like, and I was kind of nervous about what I put on one of my discussions where I was like, look, y'all, I don't think this is going to work. I think snitches get stitches in this world. He was like, I appreciate your cynical point of view, but I'm like, I don't think this is really going to work.
I read that. I was like, go ahead, girl.
He's the biggest cynic there is.
I was like, I'm probably going to get terrible grade, but I'm like, I disagree with this. Like, we're assuming a lot on their moral turpitude for these behavior kids. We really are. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
so much stuff is very, I mean, I know Mitchell and
Unrealistic.
he's very ivory tower.
yeah.
But I did try it in my resource room last week where they had their own behavior chart. My partner
Uh-huh.
teacher, she said it didn't work for me. They're not doing it right.